Hello and welcome back to the Argyle CX/UX for Finance Leadership Forum, CX Excellence for Finance. My name is Michael with Argyle. A couple of notes before I turn things over to our panel moderator. To ask questions throughout the session, simply type into the Q&A chat and we will address your questions at the end of the session. And now, without further delay, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Ramu Dahar, Vice President, User Experience, Lead E-Rates, Markets, Pre-Trade with Barclays. We're excited to have Ramu and our panelists with us for a panel discussion titled Improving CX/UX with RPA. Ramu, thank you so much for being here today. Welcome, and over to you.
Thanks, Michael. We have in front of us on my screen a fair amount of experience in the panel of in the panelists over here. I thought as a segue into our session, I'd begin with an interesting quote while I was looking up this subject matter online. And the quote is from an article from Enterprise Projects, and it goes like so. If machine learning sounds like the beginning of a bleak dystopian future, think the Terminator mixed with the Matrix, then robotic process automation must be the phase when the machines rise up to rule humankind with ruthless efficiency. There are some who say we're already in that dystopian future, but I think RPA is not the cause of it. I think RPA is a lot more mundane than we think. So first off, let's go around the virtual table and introduce ourselves. Let's describe briefly our experience with RPA, acronym watched, robotic process automation, and provide a brief definition, if you will. I'll start from left to right on my screen, and that may be different on everyone's screen. So I have Musa in front of me, and then there's a Logan, and then there's Clinton. Musa.
All right. Yeah, sure. Musa Hanhan is here, the founder and the managing partner at Experiente. It's a customer experience consultancy, and we're looking at end-to-end enterprise level customer experience practices. I consider myself as an experience and product strategist, and I'm happy to be joining here the panelists. In terms of the RPA, for my definitions and what I look at, it's really a little bit dull definition. It's an advanced form of business process automation that it's programmed to do repetitive tasks across application and systems, using the workflow engine or workflow design that have multiple steps. And as I think you mentioned already, Ramu, is that the whole objective it's to automate that mundane, repetitive task for efficiency, consistency, and accuracy. So if you think about that, I think that's where the definition. However, as we know, there's a mix when it comes to more advanced capabilities and tools like NLP, what we call it natural language process or natural language understanding, that it gets even more further and a mix with the definition.
So just a quick question before we move on. You made a differentiation between natural language processing and natural language understanding.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to quick on that. The difference is that analyzing the text or voice versus the understanding, the natural language understanding is take those phases together and be able to understand a full sentences and maybe more of the meaning of that versus individual.
Good point. Thank you. Thank you for that. Logan, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Logan Bennett. I work for Carhartt, which is a retail, like a clothing retail brand, if people are not familiar with it. But I lead our personalization and consumer and CRM experience groups at Carhartt. So it's more on the in consumer side of things. But definitely throughout all of that, we use RPA. We kind of just called automation, but essentially it's all about providing good experiences for our consumers. So ultimately what happens with that is that whenever we identify processes that every consumer goes through, so maybe that's just simply signing up for an email, our email service. Everyone goes through a welcome series. So all of that is automated. And whenever anybody makes a purchase online, it's all automated because that's something that every single consumer does that's not unique to individual people. We build those experiences so that it does feel unique, but it is definitely an automated process. But I think that is only one way of doing it. We also have internal automations that we use. That is all about what are the processes that we go through internally that might need to be automated, that are too cumbersome or too repetitive to do manually all the time, as far as data reporting, data pulling, and because we have to pull data into different experiences to get the right audiences inside those experiences. And then we also trigger experiences on our websites and our emails and media, et cetera, to provide different experiences based on different audience segmentation groups that people are in, or different behaviors that people exhibit. And so as a definition, I think that I mainly revolve around the idea that automation is something that you should use to provide a better experience. If it's not providing a better experience, then you shouldn't be doing it. And so it is something that ultimately, if it makes things easier, that's a better experience. If it is more relevant to somebody versus somebody else, then that is a better experience. And so RPA is something that can help build that better experience. But it definitely has to be thought through completely. So while I don't have a very good textbook definition of it, I do think of it as something that does need to provide a better experience.
Thank you. I had a couple of interesting questions there, but I'll hold them for later.
Okay.
In the interest of time. Clinton, over to you, sir.
Great. So my name is Clinton Smith. I'm the Director of Customer Service for Fuel Cell Energy. Fuel Cell Energy is a clean energy technology company focused in the hydrogen and fuel cell space. My primary focus is taking projects that go into commercial operation and managing them for 20 years under power purchase agreements. I first got excited about RPA really in about 2006. Was getting a marketing degree at the time and was going at night to school and seeing all this theory, was coming home and getting involved with marketing online and seeing funnel building, process automation with what was happening at the time. It was just, I just saw the vision to incorporate it into the corporate world. Took a while for the corporate world to catch up in my eyes, but we're here now, and man, it's happening fast. Especially with AI today coming on board. As others have mentioned, the way I look at RPA is almost like a seasoning in a meal, if you will, a delicious dish. You put too much without the right forethought, you'll ruin the dish and the user experience. But if you put just enough with just the right mix, you can really, really improve. And lower cost, you can increase efficiency and optimization. And that's not only for your external users, but your internal users too. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that, but it's important to understand your customers, understand your business, understand that this isn't a panacea that's going to solve all your business problems. In fact, if it's not well thought out and you don't understand your business and already have everything kind of mapped out, once it becomes time to actually integrate these tools, you'll need to have that to then feed to consultants and partners and explain to others internally what it is that you're trying to do. And so in brief, that's kind of my definition and background on RPA.
I'm going to steal that seasoning thought. That's a good one.
Nice. Please do.
I like it.
Thank you.
All right. So I thought let's kick it off. And actually, I think this question is just ideally suited for you, Clinton. How does RPA fit or not fit into the broader context of your CX and or UX strategy?
Sure. So one way that RPA really fits is when you look at I'm going to call it the tech stack, meaning you've got all of your apps and your tools and your technologies, and it starts all the way at the front end when acquiring customers, making sure that they're highly targeted, making sure that your return on investment in the marketing spend is efficient. And then that automation flows into the entire process of your business and then out through the customer experience. And you need these feedback loops to be able to, optimize your business. One way it does not fit, in my opinion, and where I think businesses have to be careful, is don't allow automation to impact your real world relationships with your clients and customers. At the end of the day, all relationships with customers are really built face to face, on the phone, in Zoom and Teams. I don't see automation and even AI replacing this human aspect anytime soon. And so I think that's where a lot of the thinking should be when trying to implement these tools.
Agreed. And this sort of speaks to what Logan had raised in his earlier introduction about the use of automation, and I have my notes out here, and yet the ability to be unique. That is an interesting challenge. It's sort of the counterpoint to what Clinton just said. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Well, I don't know if it's a counterpoint. I mean, I think that, when the way we approach it, at least, is looking at our consumer audience, like everybody that comes into contact with Carhartt, made a purchase with Carhartt, has interacted with Carhartt, and we try to, the idea at least is to break it down into different audience segmentation groups, and each of those groups has different needs, different wants, different pain points, different things that they're trying to solve. And if you can figure that out, and you approach it from that kind of a consumer-centric approach of, if we're focusing on them, you can still break it down to all of these different behaviors that people exhibit or their different wants and needs, and then provide different experiences to them through automation. We trigger things on our website, through email, through any like mode of messaging that would speak more to one audience group versus another audience group versus another audience group. And a lot of times it's selling the same product, but it's talking about things in a different way. I'll give you an example. Rainwear is one thing that Carhartt sells. When we look at consumer data on how people talk about rainwear across the United States, different regions talk about it differently. In the Northwest, you have people that talk about jackets. In the Northeast, you have people that talk about coats. So it's rain jacket, rain coat, same product, but you have different messaging around it. So it feels more personalized. It feels more relevant to them, but it is all the same product and the same goal of trying to sell something. And we just trigger different experiences. What that does, though, is it puts a lot more work on our creative teams, because they have to create a whole lot of different variations of something in order to do that. So, and that's something that automation can't help. Automation can't help that. I mean, we have ChatGPT coming out and all these AI tools, but it cannot replace a human creative that understands those nuances and understands how to bring those things to life. And so, yeah, that is how I guess we make it a little bit more personal.
Great. Every time I've looked at some of those ChatGPT responses, I'm like, you're middling the fence out here.
It's too buzz of a word right now.
Yeah, they're playing both sides. Musa, would you like to summarize?
I want to summarize it because I think the number one, RPA is not replacing human interactions or human relationships. That's number one, and I have seen it, and it's important that any strategy that you think about it, if you think about it, an RPA, it's an assistance to what we do to help us deliver that experience, that human experience. It's important that line is important every time we think about it, because a lot of time people, they talk about more, automate everything, but they forget about the objective. While we try, I like to look at, the way they are separated, the use cases. So again, my summary, RPA does not replace the human interactions.
Brilliant. And the second question I'm going to pose to you, so for you to kick it off, and then I'll open it up. How can RPA help you emotionally engage with your customers?
So as I mentioned earlier, if I look at it, kind of like more of an RPA is more of a business process, getting the repetitive, the mundane task, adding a more intelligent, the AI, the machine learning, and as we talked about NLP and NLU, that allow more understanding the interactions with the customer. Think about it in the website or on a call with your customer rep. These are information that comes in, and what it does, analyze it in real time. This is the technology that's available today. Analyze that, understand the emotion, and also the keyword of that, what kind of emotions they are in the state, that allow the human person who's talking to or interact with be able to adjust or manage that. So if you think about it, by just this one use case that allowed that build that emotion engagement, because now we have the sense where the customer is coming from or the client, and then be able to manage that. That's one, I would say, a use case that allow to have that emotional engagement. RPA itself, I don't know how emotional it would be, especially if there's something that you want to go on the website and fill in credit card applications, and I'll walk you through all the process. Good, but if you have a questions or something that you have in the middle of that, you got stuck, that's the power when you add more intelligent, the AI and machine learning, that get that engagement going. And that's what I see a tool that allow us really to increase the level of experience as well as the brand engagement with their own customers.
Agreed. Would anyone, would Clinton or Logan like to chip in on this quickly?
I think the biggest thing that I think that can help with emotionally is really going back to understanding wants and needs of your users, and then providing the right experiences according to those wants and needs. If you are doing that, then you are going to have going to provide a better experience, which will gain better emotions towards whatever it is that you're trying to do. I think, Musa was talking about, the simple task of filling out like a credit card form. You can look at data to understand like where hangups are happening with those things, and maybe people are leaving the experience midway through, and that might be because emotionally they're getting frustrated with the experience. We oftentimes talk about rage clicking, of like people trying to, it happens all the time on mobile devices too. People trying to select something and it's not working, and they just click over and over and over and over again. And it might be that it's like an image that we never linked to anything, and so it doesn't do anything. But that tells us that we need to do something with it, and that helps with those emotions.
Good observation. Yeah. All right. Clinton, do you want to add something?
I'll add something really quick. I think I was rage clicking a link just the other day, not on your website, of course, but I've seen it. And like you said, with the different screens and stuff, it shows up differently. So great data points. Emotionally, I just say that it not only affects your customers, it's going to affect the workflow process of all the stakeholders, and understanding how that impacts the emotional needs of your employees and everyone involved. It's going to transform how the work's getting done. So you're going to need buy-in. You're going to need participation and champions. So that's just something to keep in mind as well.
In addition to rage clicking, there's another experience that I've had, which is one in the banking world, for example. I mean, and this is just when the phones came in, you removed the customer engagement with the actual retail site. And it's still there. There are people who want to go into a bank just to chat, have coffee with someone. It's not necessarily targeted, but that's a social occasion. And I think that's something that a lot of, end users miss. But let me not take away time. I think this one will come to you, Clinton. I mean, how can RPA help you keep CX consistent across all platforms?
So again, with the user experience, when you're taking a customer all the way from the front end to the back end, cradle to grave, you want to be able to have a consistency there that makes it so that your customers all experience the same thing that's optimized as you develop over time. So I think having a consistent experience is going to increase customer satisfaction. It's going to improve your ability to decrease costs and improve efficiencies. And at the end of the day, help improve the business. That way. One thing I was just to kind of piggyback one last piece of this, but it kind of ties back to the previous question, where some automation could be heavier when you have a business that's high volume, millions of customers maybe. You're going to need even more automation, and then individual touch points maybe less infrequently, or up the ladder, or up the value chain. And one way you could compare that to like the finance industry might be, so a boutique venture capital firm with a few clients is going to have more interpersonal relationships than, let's say, a very big international with millions of users. Bridging that gap and having that's what I was talking about, the seasoning kind of thing, is really unique to your business, I think. So
that's great. Any other thoughts on this, Musa?
Yeah, I mean, this is consistency. It's a part of that, right? Where I mentioned in the definitions. If you think about it in examples in financial services, you have on one hand channels that customer interacting with, from live person to contact center to website to mobile to social media. And you have multiple products that you have offering. So now understanding all of that and how you are going to deliver the consistency of the experience, and I'm going to call it an experience because anything you build, it's an experience. So allowing understanding the use cases, understanding the interactions that allow to build, where it automated and where you have a person get intervention is important. That while, and this is where I like to use from the design perspective, the service design toolkit, that like journey mapping, service blueprint, persona, that where you start building a library about where are these elements from the touch points as well as the processes together, and be able to deliver. So Bob, when interacting with a bank, will know who they are and understanding, and then where they are in the process, for example, an application or process that allow that be able to deliver that consistency regardless of which channel they are using. Again, that's a use case that could be as well available from the point of view of how RPA can help efficiency, but as well as delivering the constant experience regardless of the channel or the product that they are in.
Yeah, agreed. We have a couple of questions coming in from the audience, but I think I'll tie that into the next couple of questions. I'll just add them as subsets. I think this is a good question for you, Logan. What are the typical RPA pain points? How do you get past them? Because you deal with such a diverse set of end users.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. The biggest pain points are the lack of connections between systems and the lack of data flows between systems. So inevitably, when you have a large organization that is trying to do a lot of different things, you have a lot of different systems in place that have either been built internally or they are systems that there's legacy behind them and they were inherited, or they're new systems that you're trying to onboard. And getting all of those to connect sometimes is very difficult. And especially when it comes to the data side of things. So one system might read data in one way and it might spit out data in a different way that doesn't match up with your other systems. So I think that that's usually the biggest pain point internally, at least. In order to provide good experiences, you need consistency across all of those things. You need data to flow consistently through them. You need to work in a way that one system connects with the next one and the next one and the next one to provide that experience from start A to purchase or whatever it is that whatever task you want people to complete. And then how do you get past them? I think that, there's always workarounds for that. We constantly are looking for workarounds to figure out, like, okay, well, if we're trying to do this experience over here, and we want to use the data that we get from it over in this other place, is it a manual, download that we have to do and then an upload to a different system? Sometimes that's the case. Sometimes all the RPA in the world, if things don't match correctly, you have to do things manually. I think also, though, is starting fundamentally with the planning that you're doing. You need to plan out what the experiences are that you want and figure out, can we do that? And if we can't, then figure out a different way to do a different experience that you want to provide. But what is the fundamental data that we need for everything that we're doing? And so that we are looking consistently across all of those things. And then also sometimes it's putting vendors to the fire and saying, hey, we're paying for this and we need this to work this way. So you got to make it happen. It's always a constant challenge when it comes to those things.
And is data fidelity also a pain point?
Yeah, it is. I think that the data fidelity is always a pain point. We're constantly looking at like what exactly do we need? What do we not need? What do we need to clean up? How because we are taking it from one system to the next. What is redundant? And how do we get rid of those things? So yeah, it is.
Thank you. Yeah. Clinton, would you like to two pennies here?
Sure. No, I'd just piggyback a little bit off of what Logan said. You've got your process standardization concerns across the legacy systems. Having the integration and flexibility with solutions-based approaches prepared and being ready to pivot because it's a process. Having as we mentioned, the buy-in, stakeholder buy-in and expectations, having champions and partners, and a lot of times it's going to be a big project potentially, and you might need consultants and things who can rapidly integrate. Once you've got things in place, you need tools to allow managers to then see the data and see how all of this is flowing. So you're going to need people who understand the business that can say, this is the report I want to see, and then have somebody rapidly on the consulting side or the integration side develop it, test it, and evolve it. It's kind of a...
So I think I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience here, and I think this would be interesting because Musa, you are in that field too. So what is the most effective way RPA improves customer experience? And I think the second part of that would be, what is your approach to the shortage of skilled resources? I think that would be opened up to both everyone here.
Well, I mean, there's no way to do to be effective in the approach. I think I look at it as a practice, meaning that what are the best practices around understanding your customers, understanding your workflow mechanism, the capabilities, and what are additions, tools that allow you to, like what are NLP again for advancing the capabilities of the RP, to add AI and machine learning into it. I just understanding each step of the process that will make it more efficient. It's important that, again, back to the question, I think about the strategy, it's really about defining what are the steps in terms of building these building blocks. I look at it as a building blocks from the data layer to the application to the experience, because each one will be able to insert, like the data needs to be a certain way. The application needs to be, and workflow engines needs to be this way or this, based on the use cases that. And then on the top, the experience, the designer, define these experiences. Back to originally, what's the objective? What problem we try to solve? What kind of issues that we try to accomplish? That's how I look at it as a practice, as a way of looking at where your priorities, and then from there, you understanding those building blocks and allow you to optimize them. The second question around the shortage, those are high skilled because it's a combination. I mean, you can have individual, what the uniqueness about RPA, it's becoming more and more these multi-discipline approach that needs to be able to understand not just the data base, but also understanding the applications, understanding the AI machine, how that works, as well as understanding the experience, what kind of experience you want. So it's a combination. I feel this field, yes, to be able to have that skills, you need to have those multidisciplines.
Thank you. Yes. So we do have questions coming in, and I think some of them are interesting. One of that is the one on fulfilling compliance requirements, government regulations. This is, this is always a big hurdle. Do you have a strategy to suggest? Especially, I mean, for something in high regulated industries, banking is one. I'm sure fuel cell is one where you are, Clinton. Would you like to kick it off? I mean, how do you deal with compliance?
Sure. Yeah, sorry, sure thing, Ramu. So I think for trying to integrate where there's a lot of regulations, it's crucial to kind of look at case studies in your industry, study those, find out success stories that have been implemented already. I really like that approach. It's a Harvard Business Review type of an approach. Who's been successful? What did they do? How did they do it? And this goes across more than just implementing a technology or putting these things together. It's what Musa was mentioning, and Logan touched on it also, was what is your vision? And then if you want to call them KPIs, OKRs, SLAs, whatever it is, how are you measuring performance? Because if you don't know where you're going, as we all know in business, and you can't even champion when you've had successes, it's easy to get off course, especially when you need to pivot and things change. So having the buy-in from the top of the leadership, bringing that down with a clear vision and KPIs, that's really one of the first steps. And then benchmarking. In some cases, you might need to bring in industry insiders, consultants and others who can help you do this. A good example is recently within business, I saw trying to implement, let's say, a customer portal. And as you got further down the line, realized, hey, you know what? This has so much potential to be so much more, but you have to really take a lot into account when it comes to regulations and ensuring that you're meeting all of, so much, right? To make sure you're in compliance. Getting partners to help you do that and reviewing what's worked is critical.
Thank you. Logan and Musa, would you like to add in the interest of time? Let's try and be a little more concise. We're running into that zone where
I don't really have anything to add to that. We don't really run into having to fulfill compliance regulations or or requirements. So we're a clothing company, so not really a highly regulated brand channel.
And Musa?
I don't have, but think about it back to the process. You need to insert these workflow. If there's regulation in the systems, and that's part of the, one of the actions or tasks that within the process and the system that allow you to make sure that check on these elements.
And I think I'm going to move on to almost either my penultimate or my final question. And I think it ties into one from the audience too. What do you know about RPA that you wished you had known a year ago? And I think one of the questions from the audience is, how do you see the field of CX automation evolving over the next couple of years? I'd say not just next couple of years, but next 5, 10 years. Musa.
Yeah, so there's so much technology out there now. I see this that the evolution of the AI and machine learning, as well as the whole concept, as I mentioned, understanding the building the flow on the process, as well building the understanding the language, text or voice, and then be able to combine those. We are seeing the buzzword around chat GPA. Again, this is early on, but if you think about it, that combination, that integration between a process and then also inserting in real time interactions that came from a live human customer or customer rep that allow that integration to happen. So we are seeing those. It's a huge between conversational AI, generative AI. Those are going to be integrated to the system that allow to trigger these processes as well to address pain point that might be not automated and now is going to be automated, or the system will be more intelligent that allow even take further listen, understanding the emotions, understanding the behavior of the customer in real time, then be able to adjust which workflow going to trigger, which RPA is going to trigger to address these situations. So I see that really building these building blocks that RPA that allow us to address to increase the volume, the experience, as well as enhancing the efficiency of the system.
Thank you. Thoughts from Clinton and Logan on this?
I think that, yeah, I think that the real-time aspect is probably where we're heading next in the evolution of automation. Today, a lot of times the processes and things like that are very much planned out ahead of time. It feels probably like a little real time to consumers, and things are triggering based off of different behaviors, different processes that internal teams are working on. But understanding real-time context, I think will probably be the evolution of where things go, and being able to react to things in real time.
That's crucial, real time. Clinton, any thoughts?
Just to kind of end it, certainly RPA and OpenAI, the tools, I mean, they're actually getting integrated at the corporate level. Microsoft with Teams and all these different things, it's already being embedded. So understanding where we're going with this and being at the forefront, having specialized knowledge, I think is crucial.
Do you think RPA threatens to disrupt the business process outsourcing models? Any thoughts on that?
I think so, yeah. Disruptive meaning take it to the next level of efficiency as well as scaling. So that's how I see it. Especially, I mean, we mentioned about the future is going to be in real time intervention. So think about it, all these elements coming in the process, and you'll be able to react into it. Where today, if you don't do this, if there's no real time, it's just a process loop, right? So I think that's going to be, and also on the outside, it's going to be interesting because I can see the scale and the volume. So think about all these tasks, repetitive is going to be really going down, and it's going to be the 10-15%, the hard problems that you need to be solved in real life person. That's what's going to happen. But probably we'll see more and more down as the repetitive task goes automated.
I'm going to have to, in the interest, it's a time check. I'm going to have to, end the discussion here. This has been really illuminating. Thank you to all three of you. I mean, this is a lot of wisdom coming. I'm going to leave all of us with the thought, and this ties into our last question. What does the future of work look like with RPA? We don't have answers as yet for all this, but that's perhaps material for the next symposium.
It's a good one. Good question.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. And thank you to Michael. I'm handing this back to you.
Thank you, Ramu, Logan, Musa, and Clinton. Thank you so much for an insightful panel discussion. I also want to thank everyone else for joining us today for this fantastic discussion. Now, this session, along with all of today's content, will be available on demand following the event. And as a reminder, please be sure to check out the Argyle Game Center to see how you can earn points for the chance to win one of 4 prizes. Our next session will begin at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which will be a keynote presentation titled empathy, and humanity in CX UX. You will automatically be redirected to the next session, and we look forward to seeing you there. Ramu and panel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.